Been a while since I've recorded a video, but I wanted to talk about the HSK Plus. Now, I've been using this one in particular since this color variation came out, and it took me a while to get used to this mouse. I think the first thing that I want to get out of the way though is measuring my hand size, because for a lot of those that watched any of my videos, you know that I have small hands and I'm still kind of on the look for a perfect mouse. I think this shape would have been it, but I have a couple of issues with this one and I'll get into later on in the video. But I'm gonna measure my hand just so you'll know if you can kind of compare your hand size to mine. But it's really, I have small hands. It's probably like 3.5 from like the end of my palm, from palm. So hopefully the light reflection's not really too much in the way, but you can kind of get an idea how wide my palm is. That way you're able to make your own conclusions, but this is me giving my perspective on this mouse. I don't know much about like sensors and like the clicks that it uses, you know, the switches and stuff. Like I'm not an in-depth person that knows too much about all that stuff when it comes to a mouse. It's not my forte, but there are a lot of other videos out there that give more in-depth, which ones have like better latency results and input lag and stuff like that, that foster response time by the time that you click and it actuates the action on screen. But yeah, I'm not particularly good at that stuff. I just talk about my experience, whether it may be like sort of subjective and just not very anecdotal for myself. Personally, for myself, I'm not a fingertip grip user. Usually, the first mouse that I started with was the G502 whenever I switched to PC. My grip has always been just kind of a relaxed palm grip like this. And most mice that I've used, like the 703, it was a Logitech ergonomic mouse that I used after the G305. No, the G502. There's so many like names that I gotta remember, but I think it was the 703 if I'm not mistaken. And even that mouse was very big for my hand size, so for some reason it was very comfortable to use and kind of like palm grip it. The only downside is like it was very heavy, and especially having to grip it like tightly because my hands are so small, and I feel like that mouse was literally too big for me. But it was a very comfortable mouse for myself. This is another one that I want to talk about eventually that I used, but I ended up switching to this one. I'm not going to talk about the V2 Mini today, but I'm working on a video that's going to be talking about my thoughts about this one. So hand size is probably going to matter for this, but if you're a fingertip user, then maybe any hand size can actually work with this, depending on if that's the only way that you're going to grip it. My hand's too small to even try to fingertip. So I have two grips the way that I hold this mouse. And I still haven't found the proper grip for myself when it comes to using this. There's one that just happens naturally, but then there's another one that I try that sort of makes me aim better. One of them is more stress to use. Like one of them is like my hand is tighter. The other one, my hand is more relaxed. So the way that my hand naturally goes when just holding this mouse without even thinking about it, it's just like this. Like I want to palm it. So I just rest my fingers just on it. Two of my fingers go on the left click and the normal index finger, the right click. And then my pinky and my thumb are on the sides. And then I just casually move it around. Now, the problem with this, and I think it's the hump for me, holding it like this, it's very hard for me to pull it back because this hump that's here ends up hitting like the top of my palm somewhere in this area. So it's very hard to make adjustments going down. Like this is the furthest that I can move it, which is fine. I've seen other people who actually fingertip and have like a big hand. They're able to go all the way up, down, right, just with their fingers. I'm not able to do that with this one, simply because if I hold it with my fingers, it would have to be here, like a little bit further up, something that more complicated for me to try to use, if I'm being honest. Like, I can't even go get a proper grip with this. So the intention of my grip is just be as relaxed as possible, and it's just kind of the natural state of my grip. The other one is to spread out and only have two fingers here, and to grip it like my pinky and this finger right here on the side. This way, I have more control of my mouse, and it almost feels like a claw. But I notice when I play like this, as you can see, even my fingers kind of curl up as a claw. And this way, I can still move back a little bit, simply because I end up giving myself a little bit more space to do that. Yet, this is the most stressful grip for me to use. And I don't know if this is actually healthy for myself, only because every time that I use it, my hand ends up hurting for long periods of time if I do stay with this grip. But my aim ends up being insane when I grip this way, and I don't want to, like, I'm not a professional gamer, so I don't want to trade off, end up injuring myself or stressing my hand out. I want to have my hand as good as possible, since I have no problems or no pain and no issue gripping it just normally and relaxed. But those are kind of the trade-offs if you're like a very competitive person and you want to be the very best. Some people can probably play good the way that I'm gripping it, but it's going to depend on a lot of hand size, right? Like I said, I have really small hands. Your hands may be bigger than mine. I don't know how many people actually have small hands, but I think this mouse would have been my favorite if it wasn't for this hump. This is the only issue that I have with it. That is my only complaint, is the hump that's in the back. Maybe there's like internals here that somehow needed to make space for it. The other mouse that I do want to try is the HSK Ace. People have told me to try that. They seem to be in stock, but I currently do not have the funds to buy more mice at the moment. Work has been a little bit slow, so I'm gonna have to save up money and one day maybe be able to talk about it. That mouse seems very small, and maybe it's a mouse that I can get used to. I have no idea yet though, unless I use it. So yeah, that's my grip. Basically, my grip is just kind of, it almost looks like a palm, to be honest, but nothing's resting under. Like, there is nothing under. And I apologize. I guess no matter what, a lot of people are going to leave comments, and it's something that I could edit out, of course, but I try to make these sort of be as natural as possible. I mean, I'm not trying to become a YouTuber or anything, you know, I'm just doing this for fun. But I sometimes read the comments, and I read someone saying, oh, the English language would be better if they remove the word like. So it's kind of hard to concentrate on what words I want to use and not use, especially when you're recording and trying to give my thoughts without rambling on like I am right now. So I end up filling in the empty space with a lot of random words that probably I shouldn't use, like using that word like, which I tend to use often when I rewatch my videos and I notice it. I could easily edit that out and cut it out, but it is what it is. I'd rather try to teach myself not to use it if I can. If it's even an issue, either way it goes. Like, people are going to have complaints no matter what kind of videos you make, no matter how you speak, or whatever the situation may be. So anyways, I just wanted to get on a little rant when it comes to that. Or not even a rant, but just, you know, venting a little bit. So I'm going to talk about the weight. This is the lightest mouse that I've used compared to the Ultralight 2, which was my main mouse at the time. This one is still my main for now until I can afford to try other things, but this is going to be my main because despite the flaws, it's still one that I play better at and feel more comfortable using it on any sensitivity, whether it's high sensitivity or low sensitivity. I'm able to use this no matter what. The initial first use of this, it took me about a month to get used to. my aim, I wanted to give up. My aim was all over the place. I felt frustrated. I don't know if it was the weight. I don't know if it was that I couldn't find a grip that just felt natural to me. So it did take me a long time. I deranked on a lot of games. I died a lot of times in a lot of games. But I wanted to stick with it. I switched back for a day to this one just because I was frustrated. And then even then I was thinking about going back to my Ultralight 2 because it was still the best mouse that I've ever used. The shape was fine. I mean, it fit my hand size perfectly. I wish it was a little, like, had a little more of a hump, and it was like the length of the Ultralight 2 is perfect. Maybe if, I guess the wireless one could have been a good option, but that's way too expensive. And I was like, okay, this one is pretty cheap compared to that, so I'm going to try this one. Now, the Hottie Ace looks like a mouse that might be perfect for me. I should have bought that one first instead of this one. But I figured, oh my God, it's a very tiny, small mouse. There's no way this can go wrong, right? Like, this has to be the perfect mouse for me. But it wasn't the perfect, but it's definitely replaced my Ultralight 2, which was a wired one. If I had the Starlight or something that was wireless, I would probably main that over this, to be honest, until something better came out. But the prices of those, especially the resellers and stuff like that, I don't think it's justifiable to buy a mouse like that, especially not everyone's going to be able to get it because of the limited supply that they make and stuff. So it's not a mouse that I ever want to like buy again. I mean, even the Ultralight 2 that I ended up purchasing was a reseller, and it was definitely not worth the price that I paid for at the time. But it was a mouse that I used since I got it until this one replaced it. And no matter how it feels and no matter how comfortable one is over the other, when it comes to gameplay, after I got used to this one, my play style was the same. I was able to get back to plat on Valorant. I was able to be consistent on Apex Legends, on Fortnite, no builds, stuff like that. It just took a while to get used to it. That was my only initial issue at first. So it is very light. I don't know the weight. I think it's like 40 something. Probably, I don't know if it's lighter than the Starlight. Like I said, I don't have that one. So one thing that's very good about this, I wish that, unless they do, let me know in the comments below. One thing I do wish is that they sold these grips separately. These are probably the best grips that I've ever used. And it's honestly insane how amazing these grips are. I don't even care if they look in this design, as long as they make some kind of grip tape in a row and I can just cut it and put them. But obviously these are designed specifically for this mouse, so the cutouts are perfectly matched with it. It's just, I've never felt any grips that were as good as this. And I do wish they sold some, or at least sold more for this mouse and other mice that they have, because I know every mice that you buy from the G-Wolves, they have their grips that come specifically made for that mouse. I just wish they had some in stock, because I would literally buy a whole bunch. Mine tend to get dirty because I tend to eat on my desk. A bad habit, but I do. It just so happens that I do. But yeah, very amazing grips. I cannot use this mouse without it. I do not like the coating. That's just personal preference, of course. I've always loved rubber grips. I mean, even on my Viper Ultimate has grips, pre-grips on it that people didn't like. And I personally loved, because it's the way that I grip my mouse. And it just feels comfortable to have that feeling on the side. Instead of putting grip tape like this, I don't enjoy. But the fact that I enjoy this grip tape and I wouldn't mind it is actually insane. One of the reasons why I didn't want to get the new Ultralight, money issues at the time, but also because they removed these grips, and I hate the way that grip tape feels, and it's something that I didn't want to use. Even the ones that came with this one, I didn't like the grip tape. It was horrible, so I ended up taking it off. First time I've used grip tape and I fell in love with it. I wish they sold some of this. It would be amazing. Even if it wasn't the same cutout shapes, I could cut it out with a knife or something if I wanted to fit any shape on my mouse. So maybe one day that will be an option, or maybe it already is. I just haven't found it. So mouse feet, there's no point in talking about the mouse feet, for me at least. Mouse feet, I've always used the ceramic ones just because I'm already accustomed to them. And it's not something that I want to switch. And it makes it a little bit heavier, of course. It's not that much noticeable. I think for me, it's perfectly fine. I don't think I ever want to go any lighter than this. I don't see a reason to. Like if they happen to make a mice that weighs a little bit more, but it's better, I wouldn't mind. I think this is a perfect size and weight. I mean, now they did come out with other versions of this. I think they have one that the battery lasts longer, or maybe they have a 4K or 8K one, polling hertz rate. I'm not too sure, but I know they have new versions of this, which were like 150 to 180, depending on which one you were getting. And that's not something that I'm going to get. This is good enough for me. Probably go with another shape until I find my actual perfect mouse once I have the funds. Unless companies start reaching out, or I start reaching out, I guess, and they start sending mice so I can find my end game. But this is as close as I can get for now. It pretty much replaced my ultralight. So the battery, to me, only lasts about 3 days, and that's using it almost 8 hours a day, sometimes like 6 hours. It's hard to calculate these things unless I actually have a timer. One thing that's weird, which I don't know if they fixed it, because all I end up doing is just charging my mouse anyways at the end of like the night whenever I'm done gaming. One thing I noticed is that the software, whatever percentage it says on there, doesn't seem to be true. Because when my mouse died the first time, it said it was at 80%, and it just completely turned off mid-game because I thought it was fine. So I didn't need to, I didn't feel the need to charge it. So now every time, just because I'm paranoid, I charge this every night. That's something that I never had to worry about with Logitech mice or Razer mice. I literally could leave them uncharged for a week and they would still work perfectly fine, and I would charge them at the end of the week. This one, I'm a little bit more paranoid. I don't want it to die during game. I think the cable feels very stiff, but since this is so light, I actually don't mind how stiff this is if I ever have to use it when connected. And I have used it before, because the first time it had died on me, and then another time I had forgot to charge it, so I didn't want it to die mid-game, so I ended up playing with the charge. And I play just the same, certain movements were a little bit different to make just because of the stuff that I have on my desk and the wire will hit it, but I think a bungee could probably help with that. I'm going to show you the software in a little bit, but I think it's going to be the last thing that I showed. The last thing that I want to talk about, though, before I get to that, are the side buttons. I realized that a lot of people, or I noticed that a lot of people don't really enjoy these, and I think these are very small. Like, they should be honestly fatter or bigger somehow. Now, that's not to say I can't reach them. The way that I grip it in my hand size, I can reach both of them without having to stress. I can reach the front one, I can reach the back one. Both of them, like, the way my grip is, I can reach them. So it's not really a problem for me. But I've heard some people say they weren't able, like the way that they have the fingertip, it's hard to reach the front or it's hard to reach the back depending on their grip. So maybe it's just a matter of hand size. Some people have said that the scroll wheel is too far back. For me, I think the scroll wheel is perfect where it's at. The way that I use it is while my finger is here, I just slide it to the right or to the left, and that's it. I just scroll up, down, and click. I will say I feel like the click to click in feels a little bit harder than other mice. I have to put more effort into it. Other than that, I think the placement is fine. I think the button placements are fine. I wish they were a little fatter, wider. I've never had a mice that had perfect side buttons like the 703. I think this one comes in close, but they still don't feel as good. And I don't think they're even as big, but they're kind of close. So I think it's just kind of insane how much side buttons, at least to me, matter. This mouse is about $100. At least when I got it, it should be around the same. Plus taxes, it's a little bit, more depending on where you're getting it. I got it from Amazon. They had it in stock, and I was like, okay, I wanted the pink version. So I'm going to go with the pink version, and I got the pink mouse pad, which is a mouse pad that I'm going to be talking about. It's the Razer Strider. Also going to be making a video on this, and I very much like this one. It has replaced my Artisan hand. I don't know if it's going to replace my Zowie GSR. I've always used the Zowie GSR since I've had it. I go back and forth depending on how I'm playing. My favorite mouse pads ever, this one and the Zowie GSR. One is very slow, this one's pretty speedy, but I'll talk about this eventually at some point. Okay, so now getting into the software part of things. This is the software, pretty basic. I would recommend going onto their Twitter, making sure you go to the right website, because you could download like something that's not the actual thing. But it's very simple. You have the percentage here, which I don't know if they fixed this. I rarely check it anymore because I don't want to trust it. Change the debounce time, which is here. You have like what each of these things can be. If you want to change it, I never messed with it. The only thing that I mess with is my liftoff distance, because I use my ceramic feet. I needed my liftoff distance to be higher. It was stuttering on this one, so I had to put it to 2. And you also have your polling rate. Have it at 1,000 or 500. I still don't really notice a difference, but even with the 8K polling rates that Razer has, it might be like objectively different, but I don't know if subjectively a person can tell. Maybe at the highest peak level, if you're a competitive player, you're able to tell. But so far for me, I mean, the Ultralight 2 was at 500 locked, and this one's at 1,000, and I play pretty much the same. Now I did change my DPI. I used to use 400 DPI, and I recently switched to 1440p. And I've been switching between 1,000 DPI to 1,600, and it felt very smooth compared to 400 DPI, especially on 1440p. So yeah, there's really not much to do here. I mean, you can add macro lists, key lists, and start recording what you want certain things to do. Don't have no need for that. You also have angle snapping, which I wouldn't need. You have the DPI effect if you want the light under to know when like it's dying or something, but I hardly ever look at it since I don't have the translucent version. If you have that, you might want to enable it, and you'll be able to tell when your mouse is dying, if assuming that it works properly. Unless it's just basically going based off this, then it's going to tell you that it doesn't need to be charged, unless they fixed it. Like I said, I don't think I've gotten an update so far. So yeah, but it's basically simple. There's really nothing else to the software. I mean, once you're done setting up your settings, you find your DPI, you find your liftoff distance and everything that you want, you can uninstall the software. You don't ever have to use it again, and all your memory and stuff saves onto the mouse, and you can use it anywhere on any computer at any time without ever having to worry about the software. So very simple and basic to use. No really need for it after you've done all this. I still have it only for checking my DPI if I want to change it every now and then. That's about it. I only have one DPI stage because there's no reason that I want to press something to be able to change my DPI to something else. I'm good with one DPI. So yeah, that's really all I wanted to talk about. Sorry for the very long video, but all my videos tend to be very long because I ramble on a lot. It's a very bad habit, but hopefully I'll be back making more videos, and it's just going to be for fun. Nothing serious. I'm just going to talk about stuff that I buy, stuff that I own. There's other things that I want to talk about that are not included mouse pads and mice, but I'm just going to talk about products and things that I enjoy and have a good time with this channel. Nothing too serious. If you want to stick around, that's cool. If you don't, that's also cool, right? Like, I know a lot of people subbed to my channel, and even though I've said multiple times not to sub because, you know, I don't want to let people down, it kind of sucks letting people down whenever like you think or someone expects you're going to do like make content and you're not. And I know I'm not a person that's very consistent or very good at making content, but nonetheless, it's still just, I need to think about it as just a subjective thing that I'm just going to have a good time. And it's just for fun, because that's initially what it's always going to be for me, even if it does end up growing at some point, which is kind of scary. Even if it doesn't, I think I'd be happy with it because I get to do any kind of videos that I want. So anyways, if you have any thoughts or questions, leave them down below and I'll try to respond to them. But yeah, have a lovely rest of your night or day whenever you're watching. Hopefully it was able to help you out in some shape or form. So yeah, take care and, keep on gaming.